All right, so I'm doing a talk on USDZ. I guess we'll be talking about just various things. We'll see how deep we go until it's time to, hopefully I won't run too long. Hi, my name is Gerald. I'm currently an iOS developer at Redbubble. You can find me on the CococaHeads Slack as Gerald K, and have a Twitter, but not very active on it. So let's get started. What is the USD format? So it's a new file format, and this is taken straight from their page. It's a new file format to encapsulate all the assets needed to create a 3D scene. So this is an open format that was developed by Pixar. It was actually developed before Apple announced it in WWDC, so it's been around for a little bit. And you can see how Pixar might need something like this to kind of, they have some pretty complex movies and have to deal with a lot of 3D assets, so they kind of created this file format to help them manage it. They created actually a bunch of tools, so they actually have some pretty smart developers there. Their tools are written primarily in Python, and you can actually get access to them through either the GitHub, which is the link is located at the bottom here, and Apple's actually compiled some of them for you, in case you don't know Python like me. So there's three file formats that are in the USD format, USDA, USDC, and USDZ. So we all know USDZ from when Apple presented at WWDC. And USDA and USDC are actually kind of included in that. USDC, later on I'll crack open a USDZ file and you'll be able to see that in there. It's kind of like a binary. And a USDA file is basically a USDC file, but USDC is in caret. It's in like ASCII human readable, so we'll take a look at that as well. All right, what is a USDZ? What is it exactly, I should say? So USDZ file is a specialized zip format. So specialized in that you can kind of use an unzipper to unzip it and everything. It's a little bit tricky to put together. I won't go into the specifics of it, but yeah, it's pretty much meant to be so that anybody can work with it. You can take a USDZ file and read it really easily. It's kind of optimized to be very quick to read and very open, so that, like, for example, it's there's no compression used when you kind of zip it up, so that something like an iPhone doing like AR quick look and stuff can read it with like maximum performance. It's a shareable file, so that you can pass it around just like an image through, and Apple's listed a bunch of apps here. It's missing one square because that's what the PDF had. But yeah, you can use the Files app, Mail, Messages, Notes, any of those. Hopefully it'll become more widespread and more operating systems and such will pick it up. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, this is a USDZ file. So there's like the spec that Pixar had specified, but Apple actually uses a stricter version. And you can see kind of in their tools that Pixar specifically made, like for compatibility checking, that there's certain rules that you have to follow to make it compatible with the ARKit. Things like the USDC file has to be the very first thing in the zip file. You can't have the assets located like in weird places and stuff. Yeah. So for, I guess, our purposes, doing iOS apps, Apple has included in Xcode 10 a conversion tool called USDZ Converter. So we'll play with that in a bit. But it's basically, you can use it to convert a lot of popular 3D file formats like OBJ and stuff into the USDZ format. There's a really informative video on how to work with all this stuff at a WWDC video 603, so the link is included there. And yeah, and you could just do pretty much, you do USDC Apple and you'll probably get a link to that video really quickly as well. So how do we actually look at a USDZ file? So first of all, the quickest, easiest way to do it is Apple's included in their quick look functionality. So they've always had this thing called the QLP preview controller. It was available, I think, in at least in iOS 11, maybe in iOS 10. But you can use this preview controller to view things like documents and maybe images, PDFs, and things like that. So it's a really easy way to get to those types of file formats, and they kind of make it really easy to like open up and view them. You don't have to import all sorts of crazy libraries to view them. So they've done the same thing with USDZ. You can open up, you can use the QL preview controller and open up USDZ files. So we'll do that in a bit. And it makes it really easy out of the box to get to all the really cool stuff that USDZ can do. The AR implementation for the quick look stuff is actually really good. They do a lot of things out of the box for you, and it has a really good AR kind of experience. Also, the other great thing about using the quick look is that you don't have to ask for a bajillion permissions. So normally with an AR app, it'll ask you have to ask for like a camera. Well, I think that's basically it, yeah. But if you use the quick look, you don't have to ask for any of that because it's like safe and secure. Your app actually doesn't know much of what's going on inside of the quick look preview controller. So it works kind of like if you've ever worked with Photo Library. If you use Apple's out of the box, like PH Photo Control, I think was what it was called, then you can sidestep a lot of the permission stuff. So cons about using the quick look. You don't get a lot of control over it. So I think one thing that is kind of hard is like when you view a USDZ file, you can like share it and stuff with other people through messages. You can copy it, notes, any of that kind of thing, but you don't get any control over, like, say, you can't add text to the message yourself. It's just, they share the USDZ file, you have no control over it. Once you bring up this controller, you don't really know what the user is doing. There's delegate methods to kind of be able to present it and stuff, but yeah, it's pretty limited. Unless the AR experience is limited, so like one thing is like it doesn't have dynamic lighting, and that's like if the room gets dark and normal like ARKit kind of experience, you can see like the item will get dark as well. But unfortunately, Quick Look doesn't do that. Cool. So let's have a look at what a USD file in Quick Look looks like. Cool. So I have my iPhone here. And let's have a look in the Files app. So I have this USDZ file, gramophone, you can see. And so this is downloaded from Apple's, ooh, that's not supposed to do that. Let's try that again. Yep, cool. This is downloaded from Apple's Quick Look Gallery. So actually we'll have a look at that real quick. So if you do a search for Apple AR Quick Look Gallery, they actually have a gallery of USDZ files for you to try out. So if you visit this on your iPhone, it'll open up the QL preview controller, and you can view the USDZ files. And if you open it up on your Mac, you can download them and crack them open, do whatever you want. And I think the Quick Look, at least the 3D functionality, is coming in Mojave, but I haven't tested it myself yet. So let's look back on the iPhone. So you can see you have the gramophone that is right here in the Quick Look gallery. We can have a look and spin it around. And so all of this interaction stuff is just out of the box. And we can even view it in AR. So we can see it's quite large. You can see that it looks quite good. It does what's called dynamic texturing. So if I open up a different model, let's try this teapot. We'll try that in AR. So you put this teapot down, and you can see that as I spin this teapot around, you can kind of see the reflections going off the rim of the teapot based on the screen. That is, Apple can, or the AR view can see kind of what's in the camera, so reflections. If I put like this black mouse next to it, you can kind of, there we go. It takes a second. You can see kind of the, it's me and my hand in front of it. Yeah. I was hoping that on the rim you could kind of see the lighting change. Did notice that sometimes it takes a little bit, like maybe 5 seconds, but as like a static standalone object, it's quite realistic looking, and they've done a really good job. They've even had like the drop shadow there. You can kind of see like if I make it dark, it doesn't really darken the teapot. So that's that dynamic lighting not working out quite so well. But out of the box, this is a really good AR experience. Normally if you were to write an AR kit from scratch kind of thing, this would require quite a lot of lines of code. So, yeah. And then you can share it. This will take a screenshot. Oh. So yeah, you can screenshot your AR experiences. So that's out of the box on iOS 12. Cool. Right, so what if you wanted controls, like you wanted to have like custom sharing and you really wanted to do that dynamic lighting and stuff? You can use USDZ files. You can just drop them in as 3D objects. Is anyone familiar with ARKit or has done with SceneKit? Cool. So one person. Normally in SceneKit you work with SCN files. So these are 3D files. Normally you have to like convert your 3D objects, and you can do it from a tool like Blender and stuff, like your OBJ files and stuff, and you convert them into the SceneKit files. You drop them into your assets. Like I think there's an SCN assets file or folder like you have instead of like your, I forgot the name of the image ones, but where all your image files go into. And then you'll reference that, and that shows up. Now you can use USDZ files instead of the SceneKit files. No, you don't have to convert your to SCN. You just drop them in, and we'll do that in a demo coming up next. You do need to define your own lighting, your camera, your scene parameters if you're doing a 3D scene. Also gesture support. So like, for example, when I was doing the AR Quick Look, I could like rotate the teapot by rotating my fingers. I could move it around. You're gonna have to do all that yourself if you do it custom. And you need to set up initialization and placement if you're doing an AR scene. You have to do all the delegate methods to say, oh, do I have a good enough surface to place my 3D object on? It gets quite involved. A weird caveat that I found while doing this is that USDZ measures units in centimeters, but the SceneKit node uses meters. So when I've tried to place down a USD model verbatim, it's like made like a huge model that like is bigger than the room. So I've had to scale down by 100 times in order to get it to show up correctly. Cool. So how do we actually make USDZ files using the Xcode tools? So the particular, I guess, the workflow that I've been using is use Blender, have a 3D model. I'm only just learning Blender, so just luckily we have a 3D modelers at Redbubble, so I've just grabbed the model from them and just exported it out using Blender, and that's into the OBJ format, which is a widely used 3D format. With some texture files, I have to do some mapping from the textures onto OBJ. So this is where my knowledge gets a bit sketchy. Apparently the models have to be UV mapped in order for USDZ to work correctly, and they prefer something called PBR, physically based rendering, but I think we're not doing that sometimes in Blender, so luckily the manual mapping just makes things work out, which is cool. I don't have to worry about that. And then we use, I use the Xcode scripts, so use the USDZ converter, which we'll see in a bit, and that takes in the OBJ files as an input along with my mapping, and it spits out a USDZ file, and then I usually drop that into my iCloud Drive, where I can do handoff and stuff onto my phone and just make sure it looks all right. Cool. Let's take a look at how to do that. So here I have a blender. I have a mug. You can kind of see that it, actually I don't know how to do it with that, but if I use the middle mouse, I can kind of look at that, and you can see that it's a mug in 3D. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and export that out into the OBJ format. So that might be a bit hard to see. Blender UI isn't that great. but it's like export and then OBJ, and I'll just export it into a folder. This Blender object, unfortunately, I've noticed is a bit small, so I'll go ahead and up the scale by 3.5. And so that's exported the Blender file. So we can see in here, that's, I don't know if I can, darn. You can kind of see that there's an OBJ file and an MTL file. The MTL file I can't really do anything with. I actually don't know what's quite in that, but I know that I probably don't need it. And then I'm going to be mapping an asset onto it. So this is an artwork I want to put on the mug. So I'll just put that in a folder called artwork. So I have a little recipe that I've made where I've done all the mapping already, and we can see that here. So we have these crazy parameters. Can I zoom in on that? Yes, excellent. So what do these mean? Oh, don't want that. So I'm in the folder, and let's take a look at, let's see, let me make this a bit bigger. So let's do XC run, USDZ converter, and let's take a look at the help file and see what's in there. Oh, I misspelled it. Let's use USDZ converter. There we go. Okay, so we can see that it takes in, can everyone see that? I'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay, there we go. So it takes an input file and an output file, and you can give it a bunch of parameters. The main ones that we, it's a bit complex, but I guess the OBJ file has a bunch of materials and groups that you can kind of map textures and stuff onto. There's various textures like color map, emissive map, metallic map, and these kind of define like what color should something be, or how metallic should something be, or should something glow. So these probably, to be honest, I'm a little bit sketchy on that, but it's stuff that's well known in like the 3D modeling world. So the main ones that I'm concerned with is color map and probably metallic and roughness. So I want my mug to be really smooth. I want it to be not metallic at all, and I want to paste an artwork over it. So we'll go back into the recipe, and we can see I have a material that's called porcelain PBR001, and in Blender, right here. So I have somewhere in this object, mug, that's really hard to see. Within the Blender file, I can see that the mug has 2 layers in it. One's called porcelain PBR, or whatever it said in the recipe. Porcelain PBR001 and porcelain PBR002. So maybe, actually, what might be easier is I'll go ahead and just do a USDZ converter. I'll say V for verbose, and then I'll just do mug.use, I think it's USDZ, and then mug.obj. Oops. I did that the wrong way around. Cool, so that's just done a really basic conversion. We haven't mapped any textures, but you can kind of see the verbose kind of tells you what's going on in it. So we can see that we have a bunch of different things like the geom subset, porcelain PBR001 and 002. So that kind of tells me what layers are kind of in the mug. So let's try that again, but we'll use the recipe that I cooked up. So I can do -F to kind of define a file. I think the file was called USDZ recipe, and that's all I really need. So we'll just take one more quick look at what that's doing. So I'm mapping in the color map, just an artwork, and that's in my assets folder. My metallic map, I'm giving it just a black PNG. You're supposed to be able to set numbers to say like, oh, actually I don't want this to be metallic at all, value is 0. I haven't found that works out for me. So I'm kind of working around it by just giving it black and white PNGs to kind of say this is 0, this is 1. So yeah, black means no metallic, and in the other layer, I guess I'm saying the color of the cup should be white. It should be the roughness, it should be very smooth, so black, and then it shouldn't be metallic at all, black. And I'm outputting a USDZ file. Cool. So now we have a USDZ file.
Are those black and white images like 1 pixel by 1 pixel or a certain size, or?
No, I've put them at 1 pixel by 1 pixel. Yeah. So just to double check, that's in the assets. And I have, did I put in textures accents? Oh, right here, black, white, and my artwork is in there.
2 by 2 pixels.
Oh, didn't optimize quite enough for those. So we have our mug USDZ file there, and we can chuck that into, I've already chucked it on my phone. I can chuck it onto iCloud Drive, and it should just show up on my phone. We've already done it. So let's have a look at what's there. So mug. And that's the mug that we just exported. It's not, it was one that I had done earlier, but that's pretty much, I used the exact same recipe to make this one. And if we view it in AR, that's, unfortunately I didn't do the scale on that one. We can see like if we scale it up to about 350%, that should be about a mug size. So you can see that it's white because that's what we defined. It's quite shiny on the inside. And yeah, we have that artwork that's been pasted onto it. Cool. So what has this USDZ, what's actually in this? What's that tool actually done to it? So we can open up Archive Utility, and let's shove that in there and see what's inside. So you can unzip it because it's pretty much a zip file, and we can see that we have a, I wonder if I can make this bigger. Maybe I'll just do this, and yeah. There's a USDC file in there, and it's made it, it's like mug, and then it's added a bunch of weird text in it, .usdc. So that's the actual 3D model, and it kind of says, I expect to have these assets in it. So inside my assets folder, there's the PNGs that I've defined, so black, white, and in artwork, I have the actual artwork there. That's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. Just the USDC. The USDC is looking for certain things. And we can go one step further. Like, what is actually in that USDC file? One of the tools that Pixar has provided, and this is like a Python script, they have a suite of tools. Where is it? So you can download this from Apple's Quick Look Back Gallery, and they have it all pre-compiled for Mac OS. And you could just install, they have instructions on how to set it up correctly. But basically, at the end of the day, you get a couple of tools: USDCat, USDChecker, USDDiff, edit, and zip. And the one that we're going to be using is USDCat to kind of look inside what the file is. So one of the things that I've forgotten to do is set my environment variables. I think it's this one. Yep. Let's try that again. Cool. So you can see it's spit out a bunch of stuff. Let's try that in so you can see that it's got a bunch of numbers here. Pages and pages of numbers. And these are basically just vertices in the 3D model itself. So it's actually done it all in ASCII, all the vertices, like pages and pages of numbers for all the vertices. And then near the bottom, you can see where it's kind of has a lot of what looks like code. And these determine, I guess these are defining the materials. And somewhere in here, you can see like the porcelain, the color map is like 0. You'll see that the material, the PNG file that I determined as artwork, that will be referenced somewhere in here as well. So this is a USD, this is basically a USDA file. So the USDA file, again, is the ASCII format of the USDC file. And the USDC file is like the binary version of it. So that's pretty much what is in that.
Have you ever just changed around the mathematics and see if you can set it better?
So like, right, I might be able to, let me think about it. I'd have to use, I don't think I have the tool set up. So I can make changes in here, but I need a tool to be able to convert this USDA file back into a USDC file. And I'm not quite sure if USDcat can do that. So USDcat H. The question was if it was a tool to convert between USDA and probably. Cool. So let's go back. So now that we have that mug, what if we wanted to make a custom AirKit app out of that? So I have this app called Air Persistence. This is a sample app that Apple had on their developer portal, which you can download. And this one's kind of to show off AirKit 2, and you can save AirKit scenes, basically. So basically, I just tap and it places a little mug there. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. So let's chuck a USDZ file in there and see what that looks like. So in this sample file, we can see at the bottom here, this is where it's grabbing the cup assets, the virtual objects. So there's some code here. It's loading an SCN file from your bundle. And that is done in this assets.scn assets. So we have a cup here. And it's got a 3D model of a cup. So instead, let's chuck in the mug that we just made. Into our project file. And so instead of that, let's do this handy code, which I've created before. Probably don't need this. So this is just pulling the mug.USDZ. and we're loading it, and we're scaling it down by 100, just down to 1%, because of that centimeters to meters type of thing. So let's run that on the phone. Oh no. Bundle menu. Oh. I didn't add it to the target. Cool. So now we have the same AR experience, and we tap to place the object. It makes a very, very small mug. So one thing that I think that that got messed up on was, unfortunately, the Blender file had a little bit of some scene object stuck in it, so I forgot. That's what that white square is right there. So exported a little bit more than just the mug. But you can kind of see, if I go really close to it, you can kind of see the mug sitting there in AR. It's floating away, oh no. Yeah. So yeah, that was actually just in the Blender file. I needed to clean this Blender file up a bit more before I had exported it, but oh well. So yeah, it's that easy to just drop in USDZ files into whenever you want to use 3D objects. So you don't have to deal with SCN files if you don't want to. Yeah. So finally, I guess, what we're doing at Redbubble, let's open the Redbubble app and see what we're doing with USDZ. So this unfortunately isn't released yet, but I'll give you a quick peek. So at Redbubble you can buy phone cases with, I think we have like 10,000 artists or a lot of artists, and they have a bunch of artworks, and you can buy them on phone cases and stuff. So we'll have, actually, I like this unicorn riding the narwhal. So we have this handy AR button there. And that generates, you can see this now in 3D. And that's a bit small. I think I need to fix up that model object. But this is using the Quick Look preview controller. And you can kind of see the case. And you can even see like my keyboard reflected in the back of this case. So this is a lot more reflective than the mug, so you can kind of see how cool that looks. Cool. And yeah, that's it for me. Any questions? Yep.
Yeah, when you do a custom, when you're doing a custom scene like you showed us, what are the advantages of using SDSC over sync, like a sync kit object?
Probably just, hopefully USDZ will become more widely available. So since they've open sourced it, and they're really trying to push, I guess, it to be widely adopted, it'll be easier to get a USDZ file rather than an SCN file. So normally with SCN files, you have to take like an OBJ file or some other widely used 3D file format and then convert it down and then use it in your app. Whereas USDZ is meant to be like an open source format. You can even download them on the fly and use them. So SCN files you have to have bundled in your app. I guess you can kind of have, like for games, you can download SCN files through the, I forgot what it was called. Apple have this thing where you can download levels and things of your game. You can get them through that, but like you can't just go to an arbitrary URL and just say download an SCN file and use it in the game. So that's one of the really cool things. Also, you can share a USDZ file. So you can say, hey, take a look at this really cool 3D character and send it off in messages to your friends and stuff.
Thank you.
Hey, Gerald, thanks for the talk. What were the biggest headaches of trying to figure out how to implement all this?
What were the biggest headaches? I guess part of it is it's really new. USDZ was pretty much, it sounded like it was rushed a bit to make it for WWDC. So the documentation has been a bit sparse on it. The USDZ converter tool that Apple released was pretty buggy up until maybe beta 4 or beta 6. It wouldn't map textures quite correctly. So after that, it's gotten a lot better. But there's still some caveats that I run into. Like in the Redbubble app, the USDZ files that I get out of it don't actually pass compliance. There's another tool that Pixar provides. It's like USD Checker. When I run it through the USD Checker, it says not fail. But it still shows up in AR Quick Look. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I guess that's it. And it's pretty beta. So it's been, there's been a few blogs that have talked about it. There's a Google group, I think, that Pixar has set up. So it's fairly active in there. Yeah, and hopefully now that iOS 12 is out, there'll be a lot more discussions and information out about USDZ.
Will you feature iOS launch day?
Unfortunately not, yeah. So iOS 12, I think, is coming out Monday, so that's a pretty tight timeline. And unfortunately, yeah, the Redbubble app won't be able to make it, but hopefully in the next weeks we'll have some cool stuff in there.